before, my name is Steve, and I rowed at Monkton not so long ago, in 1989 to 94, and it's a real honour, I have to say, it's a real honour to say a few words of tribute to Julian, a great coach and a very good friend, because we're here to celebrate Julian's life, and I don't know, you tell me, I think we've done him proud today. Yeah, rowers, coxes, coaches, very important, the support team on the bank. I can imagine him looking down on us with a big smile. It's made him very happy to see all the people that he's inspired, loving the sport that he loved. You know, on the river, around the river, just having a great time, and that's what we did today. So, and I could just imagine Julian. Do you remember he used to sit on the side of the launch and talk about beautiful rowing? And I'm not sure how beautiful some of the rowing was. I'm talking about myself here. I was going to make a joke about the rowing not being so great, but actually I think we did pretty well. Yeah, we did pretty well. So a round of applause for
Very generous.
I rowed at Monkton, and after Monkton I carried on. I rowed at the mighty Brooks, and then I ended up rowing at the Olympics. And it's very simple, really. There is no chance I would have got to the Olympics if it wasn't for Julian. Very simple. No chance I would have got to the Olympics. And it wasn't just me. There was Rowley Douglas, who coxed the winning Sydney 8 in 2000. And there was Alex Partridge, who got silver and bronze medals in London and in Beijing. And so there's a few of us who got to the Olympics. I wouldn't have got there if it wasn't for Julian. And why am I saying that? Well, Julian, we all know, he was a great coach, wasn't he? Great coach, had a real eye for the technique, but also a way to communicate that to his crews as well. He brought his mathematical approach to rowing, didn't he? He was probably one of the earliest sports scientists. So he had all of the science, but he had all of the human side as well. Very caring coach, and more than it was just a passion. How many times today have I heard how passionate Julian was about rowing, and he could spread that passion. That's why we're all here today. But what I would say, just in one sentence, Julian, he just had a skill or a gift of seeing the best in all of us. Not seeing the worst, but seeing the best, or even finding the best, and then being able to bring out the best in all of us. That was Julian's skill. So if you may, I'll just share a few of my experiences. Maybe you have your own versions of this. But what Julian did for me, I said I wouldn't have got to the Olympics. In fact, I wouldn't even have stayed at school if it wasn't for Julian, because I've got to be careful because I've got a 5-year-old listening to this. So let's just say I was a bit of a free spirit at school, and I became such a free spirit that I was sort of on my last chance. Mum and Dad came to see the headmaster. I was right at my last chance, and Julian said, give Steve one more go, and give me one more go with Julian. So do you know what he did? The first thing he did? He threw me out the boat. Or at least he threw me out the crew. He didn't throw me in the river, he threw me out the crew. So I had to row in a single for a few weeks. And he put it like this, he said, Steve, if you love your rowing and you want to carry on rowing, first of all you need to stay at school. So you need to knuckle down. So that was the first thing. So I did knuckle down. And after a few weeks I was let back in the boat. And I knuckled down, but school was still tough for me. But I had a lifeline, and that lifeline was Julian. And if you were in one of Julian's boats, you probably all experienced this. There was the crew prerogative. You could go down to Julian's, whether it was the flat or the house, knock on the door, and he would come down the stairs. And you could just, a few of you go in there, watch telly, eat him out of house and home. And it was just a pressure valve for me. It was just a couple of 100 yards down the lane, but it could have been a million miles away. And that's what got me through much of school. And then it was time to leave school. And I loved my rowing. I wanted to carry on with rowing. And then Julian, another great intervention from Julian, he said, Steve, you're not clever enough to go to Oxford or Cambridge. Okay, which was brilliantly perceptive. I thought I hid my stupidity very well, but Julian saw through that. He said, but try Oxford Brookes, that's where you should go, Oxford Brookes. So he drove me to Oxford Brookes. He arranged for me to have a row, and I loved it. So I went off to Oxford Brookes. The next great bit of advice Julian gave me was, he said, you won't be the best rower. When you turn up at Brookes, you won't be the best rower, but you can be the fittest. So great advice, best advice I ever got. Don't take a gap year, don't travel, train all summer. And there was a boy ahead of me at Brooks, and he arranged for us to row the Boston Marathon. Okay, 32 miles, and we rowed up and down this river here. We fell in off that dock on our first day. But I trained all summer, thanks to Julian, and I rowed the Boston Marathon, 32 miles, man and boy it was, and I got 32 blisters on my hands that day rowing the marathon. But I turned up, I definitely wasn't the best rower, but I was the fittest. So Julian had this way of saying these things, but he also said to me, when I was still rowing at Monkton, you can row for your country if you want to. One day you can row for your country. And Godfrey, you said this as well, I can picture it. I was in my mum and dad's kitchen, we were on Easter training camp or something, and you both said you can row for your country. And I wanted to believe that, but I just couldn't picture it. I remember all this self-doubt going on in my head. Oh, I can't do that. They don't really know me. I don't know all this self-doubt, but it turns out, Julian and Godfrey, you knew me better than I knew myself. So thank you for that, to Godfrey and to Julian for that. So I stuck at it, I went to Brooks, and a bit of the rest is history, but Julian kept on coming up, kept on supporting me. So anyway, there's a few of my stories. Maybe you can, I'm sure all of us here have got their own versions of the impact Julian had on you. And it wasn't, lots of rowing today, but let's not forget all the hundreds of kids he taught maths. Benny, you're one of them, aren't you? Taught him maths, inspired you about maths. All of the exam results, who did exam results with Julian in the summer? Yeah, inspired you as well, let alone all of the people he inspired beyond Monkton through Bluefriars as well. So I'm sure you've all got your versions of the story I share, and it probably involves crew suppers. Who had a crew supper? Julian, yes. Spaghetti bolognese, scrambled eggs. He really believed if he taught you to cook spaghetti bolognese and scrambled eggs, you'd survive. You wouldn't starve. The Headley picnic. Who's been to a Headley picnic? Legendary Headley picnic. Thanks to all the mums and dads providing that. Easter training camps. Who went on an Easter training camp and absolutely loved it? The bank holiday weekend. What was it? Worcester, Gloucester, Monmouth. Camping. And there were always antics, weren't there? There were always antics, skullduggery. But Julian just had this calm way of just giving us a bit of responsibility, a bit of space, a bit of trust. And probably we let him down a few times. What were Julian's immortal words?
A few.
It will end in tears. And he was often very right. But you know what? That was the kind of space that you just didn't get in school. But just down at the river, on training camp, Julian just gave us that bit of space, make a few mistakes, but you know what? We all learnt a lot more faster because of that, because of Julian's way. So I thought it would be fun, just to have a bit of a call out, because we've got a lot of rowers here inspired by Julian. So who left Monkton? Who rowed in Monkton in the last 10 years? Just call out some numbers when you left school. We've got some current guys and girls here. So who's here in the last 10 years?
Well, Olivia would have been, but unfortunately she's left.
Olivia, yeah, she's off to training camp, okay. Who rowed in the 2000s? Yeah, okay. Who rowed in the 90s? 80s? 70s? Do we dare go any? The 60s? 50s?
Hey. Wow.
So, I ended up at the Olympics, Rowley ended up at the Olympics, Alex Partridge ended up at the Olympics, Henry and Fergus, you were inspired by Julian coaching you, now you're coaches, inspiring hundreds of young rowers at Oxford Brooks and at Great Marlow School, so it goes on and on and on. But you know what, the final thing I'll say about Julian, I'm sure he's very proud of Olympic medals. I mean, that's an amazing record for any coach, any school, right? A couple of Olympic gold medals, a couple of silvers, a couple of bronzes, setting up the best rowing crews in the world. Okay, university kids beating Olympic teams. How many kids do you have coming through Great Marlow? Hundreds. I'm sure Jürgen, I'm getting confused now. Julian, the two great coaches. Julian, very, very proud of that. But for all of that, and you know this is true, Julian would have taken as much pride, as much joy, as much satisfaction from the youngest kid in the club winning their first tankard. And I know that for a fact. That was one of Julian's missions every season, to get every kid in the boat club to win one race and have that feeling. And just taken as much pride as the youngest kid doing a lap of Dundas in a single scull and coming back and not falling in. Yeah, he would have taken as much pride. You know that's true, and that says a lot about Julian. So, final thing from me. So I hope, whether you were in the boats or whether you were cheering from the banks, I hope you feel you've warmed up your lungs. Okay, because I want us to recognise Julian now in the way that we all did at the end of every rowing race. And what do we do at the end of every rowing race? 3 cheers. Okay, so are you ready for 3 cheers for Julian? Okay, 3 cheers for Julian. Hip hip!
Hooray!
Hip hip!
Hooray!
Hip hip!
Hooray!
Thank you very much.
Very well done. He knows how to do it.